Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to do something I don't think I've ever actually done before. I'm going to be looking at a song that I have actually already heard, but a different version of it. We're going to be revisiting Poets of the Fall. Now, I haven't looked at Poets of the Fall for a very long time, and I have covered them quite extensively on this channel. But with it being the beginning of the month, I'm doing Patreon requests, and this one comes from Bladed Thesis, and he's asked me to look at Poets of the Fall War. Now, I have covered this song once before, about 6 years ago. However, he wants me to look at the Alexander Theatre Sessions version of the song, and I've never actually looked at the Alexander Theatre Sessions of Poets of the Fall, which, if I remember correctly, is just a live acoustic version of a whole bunch of Poets of the Fall tracks. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to be looking at today. Now, obviously, I know the song War very well. It was from the Alan Wake video game soundtrack. I even mentioned that when I first looked at it. Since I've already checked the song, I'm not going to be talking through the lyrics like I normally do. I'm just going to be listening to an alternative version of the track. Now, like I say, I've looked at Poets of the Fall quite extensively in the past, and, you know, I still believe Marco has one of the most amazing voices. He's got a very powerful, very strong voice, and I do know that his live performances can vary quite differently from the studio recorded versions of songs. I mean, I've looked at the first track I ever looked at was Carnival of Rust, and I have actually subsequently seen live versions of Carnival of Rust as well, and there are variations in the performance, so I'll be intrigued to see any differences that come through in this version. But from what I understand, this is just going to be Marco and the guitarist, whose name escapes me at this precise moment. It's just going to be Marco and an acoustic guitar, and that's what we're going to get. Someone is outside mowing the lawn. Wonderful. Why do they always do this when I'm in the middle of filming? Anyway, so like I say, I'm familiar with the song, I've heard it before, but I've not heard this version. And like I say, I don't think I've ever actually... Well, I suppose in a way I have, because a couple of years ago I did look at 3 different versions of Ghost Love Score by Nightwish, a video that actually kicked up quite a bit of controversy. But that was an intentional thing, you know. It was... I wanted to compare the 3 different versions by the 3 different singers, but this of course is different in the way that it's the same band, same members, all in the same way sort of thing. So anyway, I'm waffling on now, so we're just going to jump into this track and have a look at the Alexander Theatre Sessions of War by Poets of the Fall. So we'll jump into it, but before we do that, if you could take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't already, it would really, really help me out. You know, I've been doing this for close to 7 years now, and not even 3% of people watching my videos are actually subscribed. So, you know, if you could do that, it would really, really help me out. You know, it doesn't cost you anything. It takes a fraction of a second, but it does make the biggest difference to me and to the channel. But anyway, let's jump into this and have a look at the Alexander Theatre Sessions of War by Poets of the Fall. Let's have a look. Bit of a long, quiet intro to this one.
Do you remember standing on a broken field? White crippled wings beat in the sky, the harbingers of war with their nature revealed, and our chances flowing by. If I can let the I thought that I fought this war alone, you were there by my side on the front line. When I thought that I fought without a cause, you gave me a reason to try. Turn the page, I need to see something new. For now my innocence is torn, and we cannot linger on this daunted view like rabid dogs of war. So I will let the memory heal. I remember you with me on that field. When I thought that I fought this war alone, you were there by my side on the front line. And we fought to believe the impossible. When I thought that I fought this war alone, we were one with our destinies entwined. When I thought that I fought without a cause, you gave me the reason why. With no one wearing their real face, it's a whiteout of emotion, and I've only got my brittle bones to break the fall. When the love in letters fade, it's like moving in slow motion, and we're already too late if we arrive at all. And then we're caught up here in the arms race, an involuntary addiction, and we're shedding every value our mothers taught. So will you please show me your real face, draw the line in the horizon, 'cause I only need your name to call the reasons why I fought. When I thought that I fought this war alone, you were there by my side on the front line. And we fought to believe the impossible. When I thought that I fought this war alone, we were one with our destinies entwined. When I thought that I fought without a cause, you gave me the reason why.
Yep. Still an absolutely amazing song. I mean, Marco's got such an expressive voice. You know, I've mentioned this many times over the years I've been doing this, that emotion in a musical performance is really important. You know, you can write some of the most beautiful, touching and emotional lyrics and vocals. You can write some of the best and, you know, heart-rending lyrics. but unless you can back them up with an emotional performance, it means nothing. You know, I've looked at a couple of tracks on this channel, and you know, the songs have had deep, profound, and emotional meanings to the songs, but the performances themselves were so flat and so monotone that they kind of lost the impact, you know. So while they were going for something heartrending, something emotional, something beautiful, a flat, monotone performance, you lose all of that emotion. There's nothing behind it. But Marco, you know, he's got such a powerful voice. He's got so much emotion behind every syllable that he puts into his performance. It's amazing. You know, you can feel the intensity and the emotional weight behind every single word. And you can tell by the way that he moves his hands, you know, whilst he's singing. You know, he's drawing that emotion from the performance, from the words, you know. And I mean, this is quite an emotional song as it is, you know, because he's talking about, you know, feeling very alone in a certain situation. You know, when I fought this war alone, you know, he felt that he was there, you know, fighting and forging his way forward through a difficult time, you know, through difficult circumstance. But, you know, when he thought that he was fighting by himself, it turned out that he had the emotional support of someone beside him, you know, saying, you were there by my side on the front lines, you know, so you were standing right beside me, right where I needed you, as like emotional support, as, you know, you were egging me forward, you know, you were giving me that extra help that I needed to fight my way through this difficult situation. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go through all the lyrics, you know, and their meanings, because I have done that before. I'll even put a card up in the top corner there if you want to check out my original look when I checked out the music video from the Alan Wake video game version of the song. But, you know, the basis of the song is, you know, when I thought that I was alone in this cold, dark place and having difficulty finding my way through, you were there helping me when I needed you. That's the basic crutch of the story. And, you know, the original version, the album version, if you will, is already quite an impactful and emotional performance. But stick Marco in this situation, just him and a guitar in a big empty theatre, and there is still so much of that power and that emotion that comes through. And I've mentioned before that I'm not overly fond of live performances, because you often tend to find, not always, often, you tend to find that the performance loses something. I have since been proved wrong by several bands, such as Poets of the Fall, The Warning, for example, you know, that really, really shine in live performances. And, you know, you listen to, like, the album version of, for example, Poets of the Fall, and then you listen to a live version, there is no loss of power or performance. You know, because, like, you might go and you might listen to your favourite band ever. Like, let's take an example for me, for example. Megadeth were my gateway band to metal. You know, I've always really enjoyed their music since I was like 11 years old. And I'd never seen them live until I think about 3 years ago now. God, is it really that long ago? Anyway, you know, because I went to Bloodstock. My friend bought me a ticket to Bloodstock specifically to go and see Megadeth live. And, you know, Dave Mustaine has always had quite powerful, punchy vocal performances in all the albums. But when I saw them live, there was something I mean, it was still awesome, don't get me wrong. It was absolutely amazing to see them live. Because, that was always one of my things. They were my gateway band, and I'd never gotten to see them live until a couple of years ago. Because I always just managed to miss them. But there was still something in the live performance that was missing. Now, chances are that could just be the mixing by the people with all the volume control sliders and shit like that. But generally, when you see a band live, they don't compare directly to when you hear them on an album. There are exceptions to that rule, like I mentioned, Poets of the Fall, The Warning, for example, and, there are a few others, maybe like Ginger and things like that, But Marco is one of those amazing performers that his voice is so powerful that, there's almost no discernible difference between the live performance and the studio performance. And like I said at the beginning, there are some variations in this performance. He extends a couple of words. He adds extra vibrato in other areas. So he does mix it up a bit. But that's the whole thing with live performances. When I was performing with metal bands, when I was with Thy Demise and when I was with Repulsive Vision, one live performance might vary to the next. Because that's just the nature of performing live. There will always be situations, circumstances, it might even be how you're feeling on that specific day will alter how you perform live. So one day you might be absolutely killing it, you might be getting everything absolutely perfect. Other days you might be slightly off, your voice might not be as powerful, you might just be in a bit of a funk, so the performance might not have as much happiness behind it, if you get my meaning. I mean, obviously when I was performing death metal, there was generally not much happiness in the actual songs themselves, but you get my meaning. Emotions and just situations that you find yourself in when you're performing live does affect how the performance changes. Like if you look at, take Poets of the Fall, for example, if you look at different live versions of Carnival of Rust, this is the best one I've got because it's the one I've seen most. You look at each live version of Carnival of Rust, one after the other, they will be different. Not vastly, but there will be subtle differences between each performance. And whether that's just he wants to try something new, whether he was feeling particularly happy that day, whether he was feeling particularly depressed that day, or, maybe the space he finds himself in is smaller than the last place he's performed, it will change the performance. But to put just himself and his guitarist in this large, wide open theatre, and you've got to take into account, like, when you're on a theatre stage, obviously they're built as, specifically to resonate. They're supposed to have great acoustics, so that your voice carries. But normally that's taking into account that the theatre is going to be absolutely packed to the gills with people watching you. You sit there, or if you stand by yourself in an empty theatre and yell at the top of your lungs, the sound is going to be very different if you stand in a theatre full of people and shout at the top of your lungs. There's going to be quite a distinguishable difference in the performance. But to stick just Marco and his guitarist in that wide open space by themselves, well, maybe not by themselves, there's going to be other crew in there, obviously, but not nearly to the same capacity as, one would normally expect in a theatre. And it still sounds amazing. Like I said before, Marco has got an amazingly strong voice. He's got such power and control in his vocal performance. It's unbelievable. And it is a beautiful rendition of the song. And it still hits really close to the mark. It's a very emotional song, saying, like, in the most difficult time in my life, you were there and you helped me through. It's a beautiful message, and I'm all about messages and meanings and stuff behind songs. So, you know, I really like it. It's a great version. And like I said, I don't think that I've ever done this sort of thing before, where I've looked at a song I've already looked at, except for that one intentional time when I compared the 3 different versions of Ghost Love Score by Nightwish, which still remains quite a divisive video because I disagree very much with most people on that, because I prefer Tyre's vocal performance over Floor Jansen's, because I don't like Floor Jansen as the vocalist of Nightwish, but that's my personal thing. But we're not here to talk about Nightwish. But anyway, yeah, there isn't really much else I can say about this particular track that I haven't already said on the previous version of the video. Like I said, I will put up the card in the corner so you can go and check that version out and see my thoughts about what the song itself is about in full detail, you know, because I go through the lyrics line by line. Here I've just given a sort of general overview as to the meaning, but you know, you can check that out if you want to. But yeah, it's a beautiful version of the song. I really should check out the rest of the Alexander Theatre sessions because, you know, I like Poets of the Fall. I have, ever since I first heard Carnival of Rust, I was absolutely addicted to the band. You know, after I heard Carnival of Rust, I went out and bought all of their albums there and then. And I have listened the shit out of all of them. You know, I had their albums on repeat in my car for like over a year. You know, that has since been replaced by other music. But anyway, you know, I have listened to Poets a lot. And yeah, so, you know, an absolutely brilliant version of a brilliant song, and it sounded great. So I really do need to go and check out the rest of the theatre sessions. But like I said, there's not much more I can say on that, so I will leave that as it is. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It would really, really mean the world to me, since, you know, I've been doing this for about 7 years at this point, and not even 3% of people watching my videos are actually subscribed, which is a little bit disheartening, you know, because I like to think I do something different than most other reactors. You know, most reactors will look at a piece of music, go, yeah, I liked it, no, I didn't, and that's normally about all you'll get. I like to talk about the themes, the meanings, the morals, the stories within a piece of music. I want to react to the song, not just listen to it and go, yeah, it was okay. You know, I want to investigate, I want to take a deeper dive into what the song is about, which is something that very few people do. You know, you'd be hard-pressed to find many other reactors that actually do that. The closest I think you'll get is Elizabeth over on The Charismatic Voice, you know, but she's talking more about the techniques behind the vocal performances. Occasionally she'll talk about the actual meanings within the songs as well, but not to the same degree, I think. So, you know, I like to think I do something different, something interesting, because what a song might mean to me might mean something completely different to you. And I want to have that conversation. You know, what does the song mean to you? How do you interpret it? You know, do you think I'm right? You could be right. You know, I want to see what you think of it. You know, it could change my perspective. And, you know, that has happened many times before. Other people have commented on previous videos going, no, this is what I think it's about, and I've gone, oh yeah, I never thought of it like that, you're right, you know, that makes perfect sense. There have been times, for example with The Warning, where I've gone, this is what I think the song is about, and I've been completely wrong, and I'm quite happy to admit, oh yeah, I was wrong, thank you for correcting me, thank you for telling me what the song is actually about, or what you think the song is actually about. You know, that's why I want to have this conversation. I want to have a deeper understanding of the music that I'm listening to. And that's why I do what I do. And I thought that might interest people. So, you know, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes a fraction of a second. But it does make the biggest difference to me and to the channel. But anyway, that's about all we've got for that video today. Thank you all very, very much for watching. And I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
When I thought that I fought this war alone, you were there by my side on the front.